Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
It's my pleasure to be on.
Now, we often talk about Moses. He's described in great detail in the Bible and the Quran, but we don't talk that much about Moses' mother. And it's interesting because when you look at the Quran, there's quite a bit about her. Can you tell me about Moses' mother a little bit, Dr. Shabir?
Yeah, the Quran has the story of Moses scattered throughout in many places, and in Surah 28 in particular, at the beginning, we have a detailed account of the story of Moses, starting with his birth, and there the mother of Moses appears very prominent in the story. There is a conversation between God and the mother of Moses, and the whole episode is not only God-centered, but also centered on the mother of Moses as a character and as a person of faith.
Mm-hmm. It seems as if God was kind of directing her, and not just directing her, but it almost seems as if God is giving her revelation.
Exactly. The term used there is awha, God revealed. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَى, we revealed to the mother of Moses. Now, this awhayna, this Arabic verb, is related to the word wahy, which means revelation. And when we speak of wahy, we think more so of the revelation given to the prophets of God, and especially to our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This is why Ibn Kathir, in his book of stories about the prophets called in Arabic Qasasul Anbiya, or just simply Stories of the Prophet in English translation, had to point out that when it says here that God revealed to the mother of Moses, we're talking here about a kind of revelation that is given more generally. So the Quran says that God revealed to or inspired, we can say, inspired the disciples of Jesus, or God inspired the bees how to build their nest and gather their nectar and so on. Ibn Kathir wants to point out that it doesn't mean that the mother of Moses is a prophet herself. And while I concur with his judgment on this, because the station of a prophet is a very distinct station, and we know who the prophets are by the way in which they are distinctively.
And they have a mission.
Exactly. Whereas others might be inspired, but the fact that the same term is used just stimulates that whole discussion to begin with. And we might say then that it is interesting that in the Quran, this term, which normally is connected with prophetic activity, is not withheld from the story of the inspiration that was given to the mother of Moses.
I love how God is telling this mother of Moses, don't be afraid. Do this courageous and scary act, right? She's afraid for her, and God is saying, if you're fearing for your son's life, throw him into the river, right? Throw him into the water, and don't be afraid. So God is kind of reassuring her in that very difficult situation that she's in.
Yes, and the Quran goes into detail on this.
And also God says, we promise you that he'll return back to you.
Yes. Right? Yes. So she's told, لا تخافي ولا تحزني, do not fear, do not grieve. إنا رادوه إليك, we are going to return him back to you. وجعلوه من المرسلين, and we are going to make him one of the messengers. So she's being assured from the beginning. Otherwise, you can well imagine it would have been very difficult for her to,
as a mother, right?
To place her baby in the Nile, even in the watertight basket that she had prepared for the purpose. A mother wouldn't be able to do this. And then the Quran is very conscious of what a mother goes through, because the Quran says that a void occurred in the heart of Moses's mother. And I as a father, even I can relate to this, and I think that mothers especially will relate to that, because how do you place your child in basket and put him in the Nile like this.
And then she wanted to reveal herself at a certain point, right? And then God kind of stopped her, right? What did God say?
Well, God stopped her from speaking in such a way that would have given up the whole plan, and this was a dangerous moment for the baby Moses, peace be upon him, because we didn't give the backstory, but of course those who are familiar with the Bible, and many of our viewers will know about the backstory. The backstory is that the Pharaoh wanted to, in the first place, to diminish the population of the Israelites, to stop them from getting power in the land, and one way is to keep the male population low among them. So the other aspect of this is that it is known from some traditions that Pharaoh got hint that a child will be born who will overthrow him. So being fearful of that, he wanted to try to limit the number of boys who would be born. And so he ordered the midwives to kill the boys and to save the girl babies alive. And so with this plan in place of the Pharaoh, this is why it became necessary for Moses' mother to hide her baby. So this was a dangerous time for Moses as a baby. And, as a mother, sometimes we say things without thinking twice, and because naturally we speak the truth, and it takes effort to cover up the truth. Mm-hmm. And since she was hiding her baby, that took a special effort, and left to herself, she might have given up the plan in a moment of lesser thought, but God protected her from revealing the secret.
Mm-hmm. What about the Bible? What does the Bible say about Moses' mother?
The Bible gives a similar narrative, but the narrative is not focused much on Moses' mother. It just simply says that this is what the Pharaoh was doing. So a lot of focus on what the Pharaoh was doing, what the midwives were doing, the killing of the children, and so on. And then a brief mention that Moses' mother prepared this basket, made it watertight, and then placed the baby in the basket and let it go afloat on the Nile River. Mm-hmm. And then sent the sister after the basket to see where it will go.
Mm-hmm. I think in the Bible there isn't that emphasis on God's role, right? It's more of a narrative.
Well, yes, the narrative is not so focused on God as a central figure and character within the story itself, but as contrasted with the Quranic narrative, as we have already seen.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.